So we got the MEV and Cross Chain panel. All right, guys. How many of you guys have MEV and Cross Chain thing here before getting into discussions in front of the panel? Anyone who knows anything about Cross Chain and MEV? Nothing? Cool. That's great. So you are going to learn a ton. We got the best guys in the room. All right, cool. So let's kick it off, telling them who you are and what you do and what is the MEV or the Cross Chain part that you are involved. So enlighten them. All right, thank you.
Hey, thank you so much. My name is Sebastian. I'm founder of HOPR, just privacy infrastructure. So think about HOPR like a VPN, but more private. And on top of that general purpose infrastructure, we recently launched the first truly private RPC provider called RPCH. You can check it out right now, rpch.net. We just launched it on Sunday. Yeah, pretty complicated topic, but to me, without front-running discussion too much, MEV and cross-chain MEV is basically the tip of the iceberg, and the bigger iceberg is called data harvesting. And my contribution there is making sure that this endgame is not going to be very dystopian and protecting people by strong privacy technology.
Hey everyone, Eyal Markovich, CEO of Bloxroute. In 4 words, Bloxroute is basically better infrastructure, better latency. So if we talk about MEV, basically MEV will not exist without a better latency. So we are trying to provide the tool to enable DeFi. Usually MEV is with DeFi, so we are trying to provide the tool for all the players in the ecosystem to improve the DeFi experience, whether it is searcher to providing a mempool services, providing services for execution, whether it's a block builder or a relayer that we just saw a discussion about. So we are actually running our own builder with around 15% of the block space and our own relayer with around 30% of the relay space, and as well as a validator, and of course providing them with the blocks that they require. And like my friend here, we also provide front-running protection services and privacy solution for traders.
Hello. All right, so I'm Matt from Odos. Odos is a DeFi aggregation platform, and the core part of that is an engine for optimal routing, right? So we try to optimally route from any token to any other on any given blockchain we're on. Now, optimal routing comes into MEV in many ways. It's very useful for capturing MEV, of course. What might be less obvious is that it also eliminates some types of MEV. So if you optimally route through some subset of liquidity, you are actually eliminating backrunning through that set of liquidity. The important part to note with cross-chain MEV in particular is that if you're not routing through cross-chain liquidity, then you're not eliminating the MEV through those cross-chain liquidity sources, right? And so you can still do cross-chain backrunning, which is sort of an interesting tie-in with this topic in particular.
I'm gman. I'm with Rook.fi, and our goal is to put MEV back in the hands of users. So beyond just front-running protection, we want to allow users to capture the MEV that they are creating themselves using a distributed searcher network and kind of putting the searchers that have been doing this for many years into the hands of users and putting them to work for users to return the value to their pockets instead of just kind of distributing into the ether.
Great. I think we got the best of the best here to talk about everything. So Matt, I want to ask you first a question about the cross-chain. You guys were been there in the cross-chain routing for for some time, and it's been many papers referred to you, like, how you're doing it, the methods. So I want to get some insights into what's the impact of MEV or any other externalities, like including like arbitrage or anything like that. What are the impacts of the MEV in general in the cross-chain domain? What is your take on that one? And then I want to get a counter take from Eyal on that one, because as a latency is the biggest thing. What is a smart routing can do with that, right? These are two different areas, I believe. Love to see both the takes. So Matt, you want to go first?
Sure, yeah. So we've done a lot of sort of research into cross-domain MEV, specifically into cross-domain arbitrage. And given the current landscape of interactions between chains, if you want to capture any of this cross-chain arbitrage, essentially what you have to do is you have to have funds on both chains, and you have to just execute at the same time and hope that they both execute. Because if one executes, then you, of course, only execute half of your arbitrage path, and you just made an unexpected big trade and market position rather than capturing arbitrage. I think it'll be interesting as sort of the field continues to develop and things like Suave actually, Flashbot Suave actually becomes usable and actually brings the ability to capture this more atomically, that it'll start to resemble single chain arbitrage capture more. Yeah, so I don't know if that was what you were looking for, but.
No, that's great, because it's MEV is like everywhere. It's kind of a thing, like, as Tarun was saying, that was a coordination problem. Now is a cryptography problem. Is who knows what? What is this? Like, we're still figuring out. I want to get your take on that.
Sure,
one,
sure. So the way that I'm looking at the cross-chain MEV is, first you have to look on each chain by itself, and Bloxroute basically provide latency for each chain, or the best tools for a researcher to trade on each chain. But the solution today, as we heard there, we're not there. In order to do cross-chain arbitrage, there is a lot of risk as a researcher that you are taking, because if on Ethereum you have some protection with bundles, reverted transaction will not get mined. So you are protected. On other chain, you are not protected. So it's not a game that I see a lot of traders are using right now. And to be honest, when we think, at least from my view, when I'm looking on MEV across chain, I'm seeing MEV on Ethereum. I'm seeing significantly less MEV on Binance, and then friction of this on all the other chain. Okay. And to be honest, we are talking about cross-chain. We should really talk about CeFi DeFi, because this is where MEV is. So we see a lot of MEV on Ethereum, but a lot of it is really CeFi DeFi. There's really today, and I think that it's because we're not there yet. The product is not ready. We don't really see true cross-chain MEV across chains.
Would you mind to expand a little bit on that to unpack the details? Why CeFi is interested in DeFi?
Yeah, so think about CeFi. On CeFi, you can have, it's an order book system, and you can basically submit order and see trade constantly. So during a slot within Ethereum, that is 12-second slot, you can have hundreds of trade on CeFi, and there are hundreds of trades that are happening on CeFi that you get the notification, that you get the alerts, that you can hear about them, and you know that in 6 seconds from now, in 4 seconds from now, in 3 seconds from now, one builder is going to create a block on DeFi, and that block will get sealed. So you can then build your strategy with signal from outside, from CeFi, that is constantly changing, or with orders that you are going to place on CeFi, and you are competing on one slot On DeFi, every 12 seconds.
That's a great thing. So I want to have an extension question to you, to the Rook, because you guys are doing smart strategies around MEV, and I don't know, you guys are coming with some new products. You want to alpha leak something about it? You may go ahead and do that. And I want to get a counter to that smart strategies with a privacy protection. What Sebastian can say. That's basically like a smart guy and then someone who is not willing to show the CeFi guys or anyone what they want to do, how that going to play out.
Yeah, so as he said, like one of the hard parts of doing cross-chain MEV is you have to do inventory management across all the different chains. And a lot of it is not guaranteed, it's not atomic, so you have risk of things failing, and searchers have to make much more complex models on how much they're willing to risk to get this arbitrage, and make sure that they are considering that before they put in bids on how much they're willing to pay to try and attempt that bundle. So what we're trying to do is we want to generalize all this so that searchers can actually fill orders in any way that they personally have accessible. So like a lot of our searchers might have different accounts on different centralized exchanges that they will tap into that liquidity to fulfill orders for users, or they might be using an inventory management system between different chains, and if you have a generic enough system or auction mechanism that allows you to have searchers fulfill it in the most optimal way they personally can do, then you have the best of all the worlds, because they're all competing with their separate sources of liquidity.
Yeah, so from a privacy side, I find it pretty interesting to look at this whole space, because like when we talk about searchers, we think about the transaction pool, right? There's pending transactions that people look at and derive signals from what to inject or reorder. That's MEV. And in fact, when we think a little bit broader, like this transaction pool is an incredibly small set of information that searchers currently limit themselves to. But in fact, there's more, right? So there's already more today, which many people don't talk about, but that's RPC providers. RPC providers are the ones who are uniquely advantaged to front-run the transaction pool. And even beyond that, there's actually even more. Any sort of decentralized infrastructure leaves centralized, but also decentralized, leaves this huge trail of metadata behind that can be used against you. So when we think about this future, right, there's incredible technologies that people work on the graph, right, or on Pocket Network, decentralized infrastructure opens the floodgate to all sorts of data harvesting out there that can be used against you, just like the transaction pool can be today. And I find it interesting. I'm really curious when we will see searchers that kind of admittedly data harvest all sorts of crap about you and use that to de-risk their strategies. Because especially as we heard like in like multi-block MEV or cross-chain MEV, like, you know, that's a very competitive game. So searchers continuously need to up their game by de-risking. How do you de-risk? By having more data, having better predictive models. So I say here that it's 100% certain to me that the transaction pool in 2 years from now will by far not be the only source of data that searchers will use. And yeah, that's for better or for worse, depending on which side you stand.
Yeah, I agree. I think that the information value from transactions is just one piece of it. Things are going much more into a statistical direction when it comes to MEV as opposed to atomic. And I think that how much value sticks with users in terms of MEV is a direct function of privacy of their transaction. Users have the complete leverage in how their transaction is used, who they share it with, and how that information can be processed into MEV that either returns to them in their pocket, or if it's not handled correctly and privacy is not there, then it just gets leaked out into the public, where it will be extracted by someone else through side channels or through other methods. So I think that we're probably going to be moving more towards a kind of private mempool kind of a ecosystem in the future, which might even be cross-chain and include transactions from different chains, and it'll be up to the users to kind of make sure the transactions are going to searchers that are in their best interest.
Let me shill an idea here on that. That's not my idea. I totally stole that from Martin from Gnosis, who usually brings it up. It's called the shutterized beacon chain. So basically the idea that you don't publicly submit your transaction for, all your searchers to feed on, but you basically provide encrypted information that then block producers commit to before later on revealing it and including it. So I think that's a pretty cool idea that is allowing for some on-chain private transactions without having centralization, because I find it honestly totally fucked up that the only way how I can currently submit a private transaction is send it to Flashbots, believe in their pinky promise, they're good guys, right? Flashbots, good guys, believe them, very good marketing guys, and to actually keep that information private and not do nasty shit.
So the one thing you want to learn from this panel is send it to us.
So on that note, my question is to you. You guys were early into this game. You had a project before, trying to do in the proof of work time itself. And now you are running a flavors of relays. Why is that? And what those stands for? And what is the core thesis around it? Where you are in this game?
So the idea was to come with a set of services that supply basically all the needs for searchers. Okay, so give them the ability to submit their mempool transaction very fast, private transaction protected from front running, bundles, flashbot bundles, and so on. Making sure that they will get good inclusion rate. So for this, we decided that we are going to create our own builder, and we decided that we're going to give services to forward their transaction and bundle to builder that we trust. If we are building our own builder, we should come with our own relays. Now we need to make a decision what kind of relay we want to support. On one end, I want to go to sleep and knowing that tomorrow I'm not going to go to jail. So I need to have some kind of censorship relay. But on the other hand, it's important for me also to support the Ethereum ecosystem and not sponsorship. So by doing those two type of relay, I'm basically giving the decision to the validator, the proposer, not to myself. The proposer, based on their location, based on their regulation, can decide whether they want to get the best maximum value from our relay. So that's the max profit relay. They want the OFAC regulated blocks, so that they will go to our regulated relay. And we then decided, well, if we are a good guy, let's be a real good guy, and let's give validator that really want to support the user and don't want to enable a predator or MEV to go to our ethical relay. So it means basically that we are burning our money because we are not making any money from the relay. We're not making any money from the builder. But we are, I think, doing something good for the environment.
Great to hear that. Matt, what's your take on all this machine learning things what you guys have inside? Strategies. Do you see any kind of new approach to this? Because you're a bit different, your company is a bit different, your research in different cross-chain areas. These are all like the outside periphery things are happening. What do you think? What's your take?
On what in particular?
In the transactions, because you're doing a lot of observing what the transaction is going to be, and you want to get the best route and everything, and you have this kind of external actors. You need to bypass it. What do you think? How's your products is going to address those?
Yeah, so far we haven't delved as deep into sort of the mempool and this transaction relay process. as much as we would like to. I think that's going to be something we're going to do a lot more coming up. So far, we've focused mainly on, given the state of a block, how can we find the optimal solution, the optimal extraction, or the optimal route for a given user order. Yeah.
As a moderator, I'm not allowed to shill, but I'm quite happy that hearing about everyone is talking about ethical, privacy and encrypted communications, something that we presented inclusion list, and something that you can extend to a user that will actually protect. So I think we are all in the same direction, that how to give some sort of a fallback for everyone in the supply chain. That's a great thing to hear. The next thing is like, how do you see yourself in the next biggest upgrades in the roadmap of 4844 coming in and account abstraction coming in? Where do you find your area? Because it's gonna touch a lot of things in the ecosystem. I'd like to get takes from all of you. What do you think about that? You want to go?
Yeah, so I think 4844 is a good push in the direction of growing Ethereum. And I think it's important. Account abstraction is a push in making Ethereum more useful for all of us. So it's going to change, for example, the wallet landscape. Like account abstraction is going to change the wallet ecosystem a lot, right? And 4844 is going to change the game of all sorts of L2s a lot. I just find it fascinating that within probably half a year, something like that, we changed this entire ecosystem upside down, right? So everything is going to change very fundamentally. A lot of the players will change fundamentally. So yeah, I honestly am pretty open-minded as to where it will lead us. Yeah, not quite sure. I think account abstraction and 4844 are pretty good. But it's totally open. Like, who would have thought, 2 years ago that we would have something like, block proposer builder separations, or would have thought that we have like relayers? Like, we didn't know about that back then. So I'm just very curious where it will lead us.
So first of all, I agree. That's both directions are great. If we'll end where we want to end, okay, and you ask me what we'll do in 4 or 6 months, I'm going to answer, and I'm guaranteed that in 4 or 6 months we'll do something else. Because things are change so much. But
would you run a builder and a relayer for PON, please?
So it's really where I stand. I don't think that those are really affecting Bloxroute that much, okay? But I'm seeing in the last 2 months that there are more and more builders, and those are really searchers. Yeah. Those are big searchers that are building, okay? And I'm envisioning that in 2 or 3 months, we're going to see less of builders like Bloxroute, which are really just an aggregator, smart aggregator, using sophisticated algorithm to increase the value of the block, versus CeFi, DeFi searcher that have the ability to create a huge transaction, and they are going to rule the builder world.
So if we don't do anything at the moment, those people we are not expecting to be the main players are going to be the main players in the very near future. That's what you're saying.
No, first of all, they are already a big player. Like you showed before, the landscape of the relay and the builder. Like half of the builder there are searchers. Okay, and it's going to be more of that. It's not a bad thing. This is the way the PBS system was developed. But I don't think that anyone that was really thinking about where we're going to be thought that that's going to happen. So I personally believe that unless something is going to change, it's not a change that we have to do. It's a change within the protocol. We're going to see the big searcher controlling the relay landscape, controlling the builder landscape, and nothing is going to change. All the value is going to go to the validator. So
okay.
Yeah, so I think both of these are going to affect Odos quite a bit. 4844 in particular will, of course, make rollups much cheaper. And that has a big effect on what the optimal route is, because the optimal route is always net of gas. And so in many ways, that'll make the optimal route finding problem harder, because more complex solutions are going to be the best. And so that'll be very interesting for us, I think. Account abstraction is going to be also very big. We have this optimal routing engine that finds the best trade for a user, but it's still not the best UX for executing that trade. And I think account abstraction can be a very big part of improving in that area. So yeah, looking forward to both of those.
How many of you have run out of Ethereum in your wallet and been stuck, unable to do a transaction? Raise your hand. So that is my main excitement for account abstraction, because I'll finally never have to deal with that bullshit again.
Someone will pay for you, that's it.
Yeah, and one of the things that makes me excited about it is like one of the original concepts that I wanted to make possible was being able to fully pay for a transaction with the MEV that you might be producing from that transaction. So that's not really possible right now, because with EIP 1559, you have to at least pay the base fee. So you really are just stuck if you run out of Ethereum. But with account abstraction, you might actually be able to just have someone else do your transaction for you, and you get unstuck and have it completely paid for by the effects of like some sort of cross-chain arbitrage or something.
Great point. And it's great news for mainstream adoption. And it's also great news for mainstream adoption in terms of rollups will get cheaper. So that's great. Before we wrapping up, I want to have we talked about MEV, we talked about all these kind of things, problems, but I want to get something that you guys see very excited in this ETH Denver, because end of the day, this is a community gathering. We should walk away with some fun and something that we hope that really excited from this event. What was that? Everyone, please.
Yeah, I'm going to be the dystopian one. So I think we talk a lot about near-term gains. We talk a lot about let's make this thing a bit faster, let's make this thing a bit more efficient. And you know who's going to win? One searcher. And his one searcher is in the room with us today. You know how he's called? He's called Uncle Sam. That's the ultimate searcher that can extract the most value off of all of us. So for me, what I take away from this is we have to really get our shit together in building resilient systems, because I don't want that ultimate searcher to dominate Ethereum. That would be a loss for all of us. So let's do that.
Well, for me, again, I'm talking about with the eyes of what's good for the Ethereum. 2 years ago, we hardly had any competitors. He's a competitor. He's a competitor. Next year is going to be a competitor. So I think this is good.
We are a facilitator, you know.
So I really think this is good for the users, okay? Because first of all, it makes us wake up and we gotta do our shit better. And anyway, all the other solution brings something good and something new. So in the end of the day, the user are getting a better UX, better service, which is great.
That's a good take. More competition is more better. All right, that's a great spirit. What about you?
Yeah, for us, I think it's all the L2s and all the L2 news. Of course, we got Base and all the ZK rollups, and we talked about 4844 making everything cheaper as well. All of these have promising DeFi ecosystems that we can aggregate and provide more platforms for users to interact with an open financial system. So, yeah.
Fun thing over there. Have you got disturbed by the news that you got front run by a fake news saying that 4844 already deployed? Someone wrote that. Account abstraction has already been deployed.
Cool.
Right.
Well, first of all, it's the year of the spork. So that's pretty cool.
Hell yeah.
And the other thing is, I totally agree, all this competition is great. And I think that the problem is most people thought of MEV as a really bad thing before because it was all based on inefficiencies and how Ethereum worked that would lead to really bad user experiences. But like what we're doing now is the crux of the issue is finding an auction mechanism and a coordination system that makes it so all of our competition like makes a better experience for the user. And if we can just coordinate all this competition into an auction that works cross-chain and maybe a separate auction mechanism in each of the individual chains that just maximizes the amount of value that goes to the user while also ensuring really quality execution, then I think that we can get to utopia instead of a dystopia.
Thank you guys. I think we are walking away with a common theme. Next time we're coming together, we'll have a better days without an overarching arm from one searcher. Maybe we'll get a more competition and more guys comes in, more innovation comes in, and a PBS will actually come in rather than just a relayer. Builders, you guys like you know, tall figure in the industry, you're in there, and we would like to see more and more actions from there. You know, good actors will prevail and more decentralization will come. We can hope all for better. But this is an amazing panel as we started. They're given a lot of golden nuggets, so it's great. Thank you guys.